Hi and welcome to this very first StudioCon. And this is the first session on StudioCon. I'm so glad that you've been able to join us. There's so many um, really good folks that we've been able to bring in to do talks and stuff with us. So thank you so much for joining us. It really means a lot. Don't forget that you can get access to all the sessions afterwards if you get a VIP ticket. We'll mention a little bit about that, but we won't keep banging on about it. This is all about trying to hopefully be helpful and give you loads of information about stuff that's hopefully going to make your job a bit easier, give you loads of advice and loads of stuff that's actionable and loads of takeaways as well. So hopefully it's really helpful. This is my first session, and we're going to be talking about what all the bits of kit that you use in school and how you can use them effectively to communicate with parents better, and why the wider community explore how you as a school can use them maybe more smartly than you might be doing at the minute. This is not about a load of new products that we're going to list that you can buy from us. It's all about understanding what you have, what it's for, and how you can use it better. So let's get straight into it. And first of all, I just wanted to ask you, have you ever asked yourself what the purpose of, first of all, your school website is? So what is it there for? What's the main goal of your school website? Just have a think about that for a moment. What is your school website actually for? So you might come up with answers such as compliance, engagement, information sharing, advertising jobs even, or might even be just because we've got to have one. All of these are actually true and they're the right answer. But what if there was more than that? What if your school website could achieve so much more than just box checking? What if it could be the place that your school community and others go to get all the information they need at any time? What if your school website was the place that all your visitors, whether they're parents, prospective parents, whoever, what if your website was the place all those different types of people go to find out everything that they need to know? Well, I believe the key goal of every school website is to meet the needs of all the different audiences, all the different users to your website at the same time. Quite often when I say that, and I've said it a lot over the years, is people maybe get a little bit freaked out. How on earth is that possible? How can I achieve all that in the no time I have available? You work in schools, for crying out loud, so you're not gushing with time. Well, the really great news is if you are approaching the management of your school website holistically, so as one, then you'll see it actually as anything particularly scary or overwhelming at all. So let me reassure you with the start of the approach that I'm going to explain to you today, you will be able to get on top of your website management and use your website what it's ultimately created for. And that is one thing, which is to celebrate life in your amazing school. So I'm going to teach you all about what we call the engagement flywheel. But before we get into that fully, let's just chat a little bit about, again, in a bit more detail, who your website's for. It's really, really vital that we get a handle on who our website exists for so that we can effectively meet the needs, their needs, while we're also providing the content that, for example, inspectors will be expecting to find. So day to day, the people that are using your website are going to fall into three categories: prospective parents and students, current parents and students, and prospective employees. The fourth audience type, which we're going to reference a little bit later, our beloved Ofsted inspector. So we'll just put him or her over there, I don't know, dog basket for a little bit. Hopefully none of them are watching. We'll put them over there just for a little bit. We could actually talk about sub-audiences. So prospective students and parents, they're going to have some different needs. So students, parents, prospective, different needs. The main thing to remember though is that when you're creating content for your website, it's really important to remember all the audiences you want to reach. And that's where we start to go, I don't have time to do that, not on top of everything else. But actually it's quite straightforward, because what we've found over the years of working with hundreds of schools and helping them achieve a really amazing website is that the audiences overlap. And the really big bonus is they actually meet the broad needs of inspectors as well. So let's just spend a little bit of time looking at the three groups that your key audiences, their main needs and how to meet them. We'll look at how that ties together and how some of the kit that you're using can help you with that. So as I just talk through these quite briefly, just look out for areas where there's a bit of an overlap. So first of all, I'm just going to chat a little bit about prospective parents and students. Schools now, you'll know this, to one degree or another, you have to market yourself to school community and beyond, and the competition on that front is only increasing. Yeah, the days of just throwing up a website that ticks a few boxes, and we'll see families arriving in droves without any stress. For a lot of places, those days are long gone. So every school has to attract students in some form or another. And if you're at the point in a cycle where you're not having to think too much about this because you're oversubscribed, it's quite likely that someone around the corner is potentially breathing your neck. And it's certainly no excuse just to back off this, what we're talking about. How do you meet the needs of prospective parents and students online? How do you attract families? So a few things just to cover off really quickly, things that I think that you need to be doing. You've got to grab their attention with beautiful photos. I always say get the best photos you can afford. So if you've got really good photos, and we've got another session about photography and how important that is, so make sure you come join us for that. If you've got photos that are capturing life at school, you've taken a big step in engaging every audience group. And if you use them strategically across every page of your site, it will bring your content to life really well instantly. Also, don't ever let your content be too static. The single most important thing I feel that you can do to transform your website into a site that users want to come back to again and again is to keep your content fresh. Now, if a good system, that's not a nightmare, is your system's should be fast and really easy to add new content. So for example, blogs and news, if you're keeping them up to date, the rest of your content only needs to be updated periodically, so it isn't too onerous. You've also got to make sure that your website works on every device. So, and I'm actually going back a little bit, I might be slightly out of date with my numbers here, but the most conservative estimates on mobile phones, so handheld devices, is anything upwards of 60% of the traffic is going to be coming from one of them. So if your website is not what we call responsive, meaning that it will work on every device, you've got something to sort out there massively. So your existing provider might be able to help you with that. If not, when the cycle comes around where you're thinking about website stuff, that's a really important thing to be looking at. You could think about investigating creating audience-specific sections on your site. You can have a section on your site that's created specifically for people who are thinking about coming to your school. So I'm going to put some examples for you to have a look at on kind of additional reading afterwards. I'll kind of post this here. But what you can do is you can have, if you have a section, so if you're a high school, you're thinking about new starters, particularly now, right now, where people can't actually come and look around school very easily, really important to get that done. So that's your prospective parents and students. What about your current parents and students? How do you meet their needs? So parental engagement, as you know, huge deal for schools. Really hard to get it right. You're pulled in so many different directions. In-school demands are coming first, rightly, but compliance, engagement, tech, budget constraints all create this bit of a nightmare for you to manage potentially. Your website is actually a really big ally in helping keeping communication healthy. So as we move forward in this session, we'll see in a short while how your website sits right at the center of every piece of technology you're using to reach and engage and hopefully really delight your school community. But for now, here's some key points to think about when you're thinking about how can you meet your parents' needs through your website. First of all, you need to direct parents to your website to access information, right? So that's pretty obvious. From policies, though, to uniform requirements, and a whole host of other stuff, by directing parents to your website for key information and making sure it's current and it's relevant and it's accurate, parents will grow over time to know and accept and expect as well that your website is the go-to place. It's not the easiest thing to achieve. It needs consistency, but it's a big game changer if you are willing to take the time over a long period of time to get on top of this. Also, make sure it's mobile friendly content when you're doing it. That's really important. Think about also things like news or newsletters on your website. My suggestion is do something every week. So most schools send something out to home. Primary school certainly will send stuff home or will put stuff on the site, but make sure it's information that's important and interesting and current and easy to access. Then parents are much more likely to engage with it. So online, that's really important because parents can't access the content, can access the content as and when they need to. If you think about your newsletters and they're printed and how many go home in a bag and you've no idea what happens with them, think website first when it comes to news, and then direct your parents to your website. And we'll talk about the channels you can use to do that in a little while. Think about how you can get your students involved. So whether you're a primary school or working with an older bunch of students, by getting them involved in adding news, blog posts, or even helping manage main site content, scary, that will actually instill a bit more interest from parents at home. That's what we found has happened really well. So some schools put lots of effort into putting evidence of students' work on their website regularly, so help with the parental engagement, but it also supports curriculum evidence in a really, really good way. And again, I'm going to explain some of the other options around that in a little while. And really important to offer opportunities to engage through your website. So if you've got things like contact forms, making comments available on blogs, scary, little feature maybe that allows you to approve them before they go live, helpful. If you can link to your website, link your website to your social networks, tie it all together, you're really raising the game massively if you do that. What about a third audience type? So prospective employees. So the first place a prospective employee will almost certainly look will be your website because it gives them the best first impression. They're going to be doing that. Whenever someone spots an advert for a vacancy at your school, the first thing they're going to do if they're remotely interested is have a look at your site. So it's so important that the best applicants immediately think that your school is a school at which they'd like to work. I have heard of potential recruits not applying because the school website is so bad. It's worth thinking that through. But it's also really important to give them a real feel for what you're about as a school. Follow some of the tips above when you're giving your prospective parents and parents tips I've just mentioned, a true feel for what you're about. The same content that we talk about for news, blogs, really lovely pictures, all that stuff we've talked about, they really go a long way to helping paint the really good picture of life in school for prospective staff, your colleagues as well. What about us having some information on there that is quotes from your staff? What about information about what it's like to be part of the school community? Also, again, provide an opportunity to engage, give prospective employees the opportunity to get in touch really easily. Do you know, one of the things that drives me absolutely crazy, and this is just about structure, and I look at so many school sites where we've got a navigation bar across the top, and then we go into information or about our school, or we go parents, or one of the options, and there's a drop down, and in there will be something that says our contact details or something like that. And I promise you, it happens several times a week when I'm looking around sites. So if somebody gets in touch and they're asking for a quote for a website, something, I obviously have a look. So many schools, it takes me a little bit of time to find the contact details. That's terrible. It needs to be really high on the priority list. Just before we move on to talking a little bit our friend, the inspector, who's lurking, a few things, just all the tips and tricks that from all the audience groups are actually relevant to everybody else. Yeah, so if we're talking about prospective employees, the best applicants are going to want a real feel for your community. They're going to want opportunities to excel and to shine and grow, get involved with the stuff that's going on day to day. If they can't see that on your site, bearing in mind it's the first place that they're going to go, they're not going to be interested. Yeah, you see how that all ties together. Let's just spend a little bit of time now talking about inspectors. Yeah, because we need to. I'll keep it very, very brief, and then we'll get on to the really cool stuff. So Ofsted obviously puts demands on schools to meet certain requirements through your school website. We know that. Okay, there is another session I'm going to be doing later on today, which is really hopefully a helpful broad overview of where the lay of the land is right now from a compliance point of view. And we do have a load of resources that are going to help you get your site compliant and keep it that way. It does not have to be too onerous if you get it if you get it right. But what's become more and more apparent is that inspectors are looking for more and more from schools via your websites, and before they carry out an inspection. And um, while we've been putting stuff together for StudioCon, I've read loads of stuff and reflecting on stuff of what, where we've been over the years, and the specifics around requirements haven't changed massively. There's been one change since September 2018, which is around financial information, which was added at the end of August 2020, so really recently. If you don't know that, that will need to be sorted out. You can check out our resources, which again, we'll point you to. But the list of requirements hasn't changed massively since it's 2 years. Yeah, but what has changed are the things that we've been saying are best practice and what inspectors are looking for. And there's now written mantras within that inspectors follow when they do visit. And actually, before they visit, the stuff that happens that steers the inspection. So stuff on your site will steer the inspection before it started, and you do have some control over that. But again, I'll cover some of that this afternoon, and in some of the other resources that we've got available to you as well. So that's our audiences. I want to introduce you now to what we call the parental engagement flywheel. And if you can get an effective handle on how we're driving parental engagement, it's going to have a really big impact on how we effectively portray our school online. So let me see if I can just share. I'm going to share one thing with you. So here is the flywheel. Okay, so we hear all about the tools and strategies schools need to effectively engage parents and the wider school community. The problem is we hear just as much about the cupboard of shame that lots of schools have. It's full of innovative ed tech. It's kit that's sat gathering dust, iPads in cupboards, cloud-based ed tech that isn't understood or well supported and not very useful sometimes. It's often closeted away with the best of intentions, isn't it? Eating away at straining budgets and the huge pressure that's on your time. Also, products and tools have the potential to be really exceptional, but they're too solitary. EdTech's amazing, absolutely has the potential to make an enormous difference to parental engagement. Our problem is much of it is fragmented and doesn't tie together well at all. So products either gather dust or they sit in silos on their own, not interacting with each other. So I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. Schools rely really heavily on apps to reach parents, and they're used as an end in themselves rather than part of a wider strategic approach to engaging with parents. And it's really problematic as an approach to engagement. So the idea of the engagement flywheel is really quite simple. First of all, we need to make a focus on what our main goal is. So let's just have another quick nosy at that so you can see that. Is we need to make sure what our main goal is. And as a school, it's our families. So families, parents, students, wider community, they're the first thing. Yeah, the community is around the students. And then we're going to focus on creating engaging, interesting content to help and inspire people who are going to need help and will engage with you when you're looking for solutions to provide answers for. So from our point of view as a school website business, this is the approach that we take. So we focus on you working in schools, and then we're going to create content that hopefully engages you, is helpful to you. Yeah, it's a really good way to build trust. Yeah, it's a really, really good way for schools to approach engagement, and when it's done really well, the impact is really huge. Direct impacts on increased levels of engagement, improved relationships, and a deeper trust between you, let's call your provider, and your audience, which is your school community, particularly parents. The flywheel, as you can see, is made up of 3 vital parts that fuel engagement when it's done correctly. So you can see here you've got attract, engage, and delight that work all the way around. Think about what we've just looked at. You can see the problem lies in the education sector about how we approach parental engagement at the moment. We talk about engagement when actually there's an opportunity to go much further than that. So attract is number 1, engage is number 2, delight is number 3. What if you could go further than just engage your parents, but actually delight them? What if you could do that? What would that look like? How would you go about it? How would you even know where to start? What if you applied some of these principles we chat through to your school? How could you see the same benefits in the relationship with your school community and students and parents and families? Could you take what you do really well for your school community and then put it in front of inspectors? The answer is yes. So it's happened. We've done it. It works brilliantly well. So let's look at the 3 stages of the flywheel that you should be thinking about in school. Think about how these apply to you in your school and how you currently approach engagement. And once we've looked through these, we'll look at how specifically this fits in with some of the other tools that you're using as well. So the attract stage of the flywheel, again, let me just get that in front of you so you can see what we're talking about. But the attract stage of flywheel is all about encouraging your audience to want to engage with you in some way or another by providing them with what they need. The idea is to attract them to your school. Your website sits right at the center of the aim. Yeah. But before you can start to use your website to attract people, you need to know who those people are. So think back to your audiences. That's why it was really important to think about those audiences. Every website that we build for schools as an organization is built with some primary aim. So it's got to be beautiful. It's got to be responsive. It's got to reflect who you are as a school. It's got to be really easy to manage. It's got to be really well supported. You have to be empowered to be able to put lively, engaging content in it. And that last one is your biggest challenge, your biggest ongoing aim of your website once it's live. So once your content is transferred and your website's live, Studio clients benefit from us transferring all your content for you. Hooray. Your website is all about, I've said it before, celebrating life in school. So by adding content, be that news articles, photos, videos, photo galleries, blogs, your content's going to naturally be attractive to your audience because it's all about stuff that's going on in school. So you could say loads more about that, and we've gone into a little bit of detail about it, but for now, the main point to, I think, take away is telling stories of life in school is the #1 way to attract parents, prospective staff, and inspectors to your school. The next natural step to look at is how we use your website and other tools to engage your audience, So our answer lies in giving our visitors what they want. Here's how that works in 3 steps. So #1, keep content that paints the richest possible picture of life in school. That's where your focus is. You've got to structure your website in a way that makes it really easy for visitors to find what they need. And then you need to use various channels to direct your audience to your website. So your content's going to be really good. And then you're going to use everything else to push people to your website. Yeah, that's the really important aspects of a successful website that's engaging, and it applies to all your audience and it applies to all school settings. Bonus. If you're using the tools that we'll discuss in a moment about really effectively, they're actually quite easy to achieve all those aims. And if you meet them, you're going to be engaging your parents and you're going to be providing inspectors with the rich picture that you're looking for. But is that enough? This is where the rub lies for me. So why are we satisfied with the word engagement? So in every other market, use that word carefully, but in every other market, the word is part of a process rather than the end goal. So engagement is what we do to encourage people to interact with us, to engage with us with the ultimate goal of partnering with us. Yeah. Why? Because we want to serve. So as an organization, we love to serve schools. It's what drives us. It might mean someone buys a school website package from us. It might be as simple as signing up to receive weekly blog updates. So that's what partnership looks like for us. For a school, a partnership looks not that different. Relationships functioning really well for the ultimate good of those we serve. And in school, that's the students, that's the children. If you're a little bit uncomfortable with the word market, please hear it in the best possible sense. So we use the phrase to talk about a group of people that we're trying to reach and ultimately serve. In that sense, I think schools are no different. And that's where we have a problem, because the relationship is not about engaging with parents. It's not simply about that. It's about being in the 3rd stage, which is the delight stage. So more broadly, organizations that delight their customers will see them transform from purchasers to active promoters. You think about all the difficult conversations you have with parents. An active promoter will not only engage with an organization, but they'll do things like submit reviews, tell their friends, share on social media, and you can't stop them, and you wouldn't want to. So that's the kind of marketing you can't buy in any traditional sense. See the power of that? And how does that relate to your school? What does it actually look like in school? And it's really important to be super clear that no individual social media channel, no app or other ed tech kit sits central to your parental engagement strategy. It doesn't work. And I kind of touched on this before, but it's really important to get this is central to everything. So one reason that no prospective parent, inspector, colleague will ever look at your app, so Class Dojo, which is brilliant. Nobody will ever look at that, or your emails, or your text messages. Which tool you use, do all your audiences look at? All the people who have stakes to hold in your school community. It's your website. So all around the flywheel. So if we just again take one last look at it, all around the flywheel. So we've got your school website, all around, right around this outside in your kind of black void, for want of a better expression, is all the other kit you're using. So your apps, social media, parents' evening booking systems, text messaging service, compliance tools, resources, etc., 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 social media, social, YouTube, everything. Think website central, website first, students at the center, everything else pushes that way. So they're all tools that push your audience to the place they need to be, where the magic happens, so where the rich content is, where you're celebrating life in school. It's your school website. Why do we put all the best live information on a parental engagement app? Why do we put all our focus on one aspect of parental engagement when we could achieve so much more with just a little bit of an adjustment to our approach? That's how we approach delighting parents and not just engaging them. Students and their families sit right at the center of everything. They're the reason we do the things we do in school, and they're why we celebrate those stories online, because we want to talk about all the amazing stuff the children, the students are doing. And they're also the reason that we push that information out via apps, email, text message, social. Encircling your audience is a school website, and it's the heart of the engine that drives moving from engaging to delighting. Let's spend just a little bit of time, and I'm going to rattle through these, okay? Because I think we've covered the broad principle, but I just want to spend just a little bit of time before we wrap up on what it actually looks like with some of the tools that we're actually talking about. So, first of all, and this is probably the biggest one, and the one I get a bit irked by, is apps. But genuinely, parental engagement apps are brilliant. Honestly, they're a really good way to keep parents informed day to day about what's happening in school and updates for your children. They actually have massive power to be really transformative in supporting your parent-teacher partnership. They've got the power to message individual parents or groups of parents. They can be used to bring together important information and tools for really easy access. They can be a real asset in keeping engagement firing along nicely and helping parents feel part of the community. But they are rarely used to their maximum potential, nor are they used in the best way to ensure parental engagement strategies are performing at their best. So how do parental engagement apps fit into the broader engagement flywheel? Yeah, I think that we have seen it. So the flywheel is quite a powerful concept. Yeah. In some of the stuff we've written, we've explored. There's a blog post that you'll see of ours that is parental engagement is not good enough. We've explored how it could be better, how the flywheel can hopefully help with that. And you've obviously got to remember that your website sits central. Parental engagement apps at their best are really effective in providing short snapshots of information. Yeah. So they're perfect for the quick hits that parents need to know day to day. They're great for accessing contact information, social channels, and they're a really good way of getting all the best things that go into school every day. But they are not great at providing information that's in depth or for anyone other than those that are already kind of in your inner circle. Yeah. So if you think about that, if your chess club, I went to school in the 90s. I don't even, does anybody still play chess? I don't even know. But if your chess club wins a tournament and you publish that news on your app, but nowhere else, nobody's going to see it. Your parents will see it at best. Nobody else is going to see it. Prospective parents who want to know about all the extracurricular things you do won't see it. Inspectors who are looking for broad and balanced curriculum and want to know everything else what goes on won't see it. The geeky new history teacher who happens to be a closet chess master, just not going to know. That's where parental engagement apps fall down really hard. So best practice is, how do you fix it? Make sure that you're using your parental engagement app that you've spent very good money on and they're not cheap potentially. What's the purpose of it? Well, all too often what you're doing is you're publishing content to your app and then sending a push notification to where it needs to be, and that's the end of it. You need to approach it slightly differently. Again, think website first. Think about who your content could benefit. If it's more broadly useful, if it's inspirational and perhaps newsworthy, think website first. Publish the article first of all on your website as a news article or an event or a blog post, whatever's the best format for that content, and then share the information via the app with just the title, yes, the image, and a short intro, and then link to your website for people to read the full article. And then what you've done, you've saved yourself the effort of having to put the whole thing in several places, but you've got it in one place in full, and you're going to use your app to drive people to it. That makes sense? Really powerful. And we'll apply that to loads of other stuff as well. So things like email newsletters. Email's crazy at the minute. So email's changed massively over the years, and the rate of change has accelerated more and more and more. But school newsletters still lag behind. It drives me mad. Lots of schools are missing such a good opportunity to engage. And I get the thing about collecting email addresses and all that kind of stuff, but we've shifted massively. Even over the last, so since COVID stuff, it's shifted massively. Let me just give you a few eye-popping stats. We'll find out. So almost every report, let me see, on email open rates concludes that mobile is responsible for at least 50% of opens. Emails that display incorrectly on mobile will likely be deleted within 3 seconds. 80% of users are expected to access their email accounts via a mobile device. That's nearly 2 years old, that information. Just think about that. If you're sending emails with bulky PDF attachments, displaying in a format that's hard to read on any device, you might need to rethink how you're using it, because email is such a powerful tool. It gives you a ton of control of the visuals. Schools are not using email well at all most of the time. If you get an email the way I get an email from school, you will not engage with it. Because what I get is I get an email that will have a link on it, and then I'll have to click the link. So I get an email with nothing in it except a link to a document, and then I'll get the document and I'll be like this, trying to read the thing, and I can't read it, and I give up very quickly. And a lot of the problem is within the options that are available for schools. We do have an option at Studio which just fixes the whole thing and makes it really nice. People engage with email really differently. I mean, just think about it. How many do you get emails from Tesco or Amazon or whoever you get emails from, that are kind of marketing emails? You're not struggling to get through them. They're built in a way that's engaging to take you somewhere where there's more information. Where is it? It's the website. So if I'm thinking Amazon, I'll get a link, it'll take me to the website or the app, and it'll try and get me to buy something. If you just apply the same principle. So whether you're writing, if you're creating a newsletter, again, we've created something that makes it so easy to do fast. If you're creating a newsletter, or if you're doing something that is a letter from the head, so it's more text-based, include the information in it. So when I open the email, I get it there and then. And anything that is more in depth, I just have to click and I go to the website to get it more in depth. See the power of that? It's a huge thing. What about social? So social media is, I don't know how you feel about it. So it's here to stay. Let's be very clear on that. I know in some areas, schools, the only way they can reach the school families, parents, etc., is by Facebook, and they have literally made the decision, well, we just need to suck it up and go on Facebook, even though we really don't want to. But it's when they've pushed through the pain, it can be quite painful. It's actually worked amazingly well. One thing again that I'm going to say is from a social media point of view, wherever you're going, whether you're thinking Twitter is a focus for you or Facebook is a focus for you, use the same approach. Firstly, you've got to be prepared to respond to people on there. You've got to, it's a good idea to have a policy that is kind of an agreement between you as school and parents, kind of what's acceptable. Because, yeah, you know what I'm saying. But you also need to use the same approach of going, look, actually, the information's on my website. And I'm going to put stuff on social and point to people on my website. Just as an aside, your kit's really important here, because I know you think I've got to do all these things in different places. So Studio website software lets you create a news article and then then tweet or post on Facebook direct from within the system that then pushes people back to your website. So it is built to do that. Yeah. That's always the best thing to do. And again, there's loads of information about social media in some of our other resources. So things like we've got some online courses and stuff that, again, I'll mention in a moment that might be really helpful. But engage with social because it's so powerful. I just want to make a couple of quick mentions for video. That's something that's gone absolutely crazy and had gone crazy over the last year or two, but then lockdown, the use of video has obviously exploded and people are embracing that more than ever, and we're inundated with requests for things like open evening video type stuff and all that kind of jazz, but there's some amazing stuff going on there. Doesn't need to be time consuming from a video point of view. I'm actually doing another session with a friend of mine called Sam, who goes into schools and does other types of video stuff later on this week, so do join for that session. And a little while ago, you'll find this at Studio TV, I did a free short course on how you can make some good video using your phone or your iPad. So there's some tips on that. So again, look out for that. Little mention for photography, again, so powerful in bringing your content to life. There's kind of two categories of photos, so pro and candid. Pro are the ones that you need front and center on your site, the kind of headline ones which give an immediate, really high quality impression of your website. I always kind of say get the best photos you can afford. If you've got somebody who genuinely can do a pro photo in the school community, get them in and don't spend money on it, because again, it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but get the best photos you can afford. But there's also the kind of candid photos as well. So they're really just as important, and it's good to have an idea of how to take a decent photo. And again, we're doing another session where I'm chatting with a brilliant photographer called Luke, he's been into 200 schools in the last couple of years. I think since end of lockdown, he's done 30 schools in a month or something crazy because it's just blown up. So that's worth a watch, because we'll go into some detail about how you can get the best out of a photo day and how you can do some good photos on a phone or an iPad in school. But it's really important to get a handle and make sure that you're using photos. How do we bring everything together? We've spent plenty of time looking at all the elements of parental engagement and the flywheel, and I really hope that's given you a good understanding of where each element fits in and what's possible. How do you bring it all together, though? Well, I think the most important thing to say is that you do not have to use every single element. Don't buy into the lie that you've got to have several apps, you've got to have email newsletters, you've got to have text messages, you've got to cover every base. I genuinely don't think that. I think you know your school community better than I do or any other provider does. We can advise on what might be good based on experience of similar school settings, but you know the best ways to reach people. So that's really important to say. You don't need to use everything. So in some settings, you might go, actually, we need a website where all our content goes. Of course we do. And all our parents are on Facebook, and they change their numbers so often there's really no point having text messages, but Facebook works brilliantly. Focus your attention on those channels and make those channels be the best that they can be. Pick the handful of tools and systems that you're able to implement and feel would work best in your setting, and run with those. And you can always add other channels later on. Of course you can. There's no issue at all in doing that. If you're already working with a number of the channels that we've discussed, your focus should be then on how to ensure that everything is being used cohesively, that it's supporting all the other channels, and it is driving people to your site and is meeting the needs of the community as best it can. I really hope that's been helpful. Before I go, a few other things to mention. I'd love to help you explore this in more detail. We have a product at Scudio TV, which is a membership, so an annual or monthly membership with a load of courses and a load of resources and some one-to-one sessions that we're running for people who are members as well. And the details will be made available to you, but we're offering a 50% discount for delegates only, and that's only available this week, so you'd have to get in there fast. So again, there'll be details here, but you'll be able to see that as well as we go through it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to email me direct, I'm at ian@scudio.com, and I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't registered for the other sessions that are coming up, make sure you do that. And if you want access to any of the sessions afterwards, make sure you get your VIP ticket as well. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of ScudioCon. It's amazing to see you here.